Take back your life. 1. Stop drifting, start steering. There's a kind of quiet danger out here in the open country, and it doesn't come with teeth or claws. It's the danger of drifting. You see, drifting doesn't make much noise. It doesn't happen with a crash or a bang. It's slow, steady, and sneaky. Like a lazy river, it'll carry you along without any effort on your part, and at first you might even like it. You tell yourself, well, this is easier than paddling. Let's just see where it takes me. But here's the trouble. Rivers don't ask where you want to go. They don't check your plans. They carry you wherever they're flowing, and sometimes that's straight into the rocks, or worse, right off a cliff. Life's the same way. If you stop steering, if you quit setting your own course, you'll end up somewhere you never meant to be. You'll look around one day and realize you've been living someone else's life, chasing someone else's dreams, answering to someone else's expectations. And maybe you didn't even notice it happening. Drifting can come in all shapes and sizes. Maybe it's staying in a job you hate because it's comfortable. Maybe it's letting your health slide because you'll start taking care of it tomorrow. Maybe it's letting relationships hang on, even though they've been hollow for years. Whatever the case, drifting feels safe at first, until you wake up and see how far you've been carried away from the life you wanted. Now, steering, that's a different story. Steering takes effort. It means grabbing the reins, setting your eyes on the horizon, and saying, that's where I'm headed, and I'll fight the wind and the current to get there. It's not as easy as floating. You'll get tired. Your arms will ache, and every now and then you might get turned around, but at least you'll know one thing. You chose your direction. Here's the truth. A lot of folks don't want to hear steering means making decisions. And decisions mean risk. It means you might choose wrong sometimes, but a wrong turn you made yourself is better than ending up in a swamp because you let the current decide. At least when you choose, you learn. At least when you steer, you grow. And let me tell you something else. Drifting is never really neutral. You think you're standing still, but you're not. You're moving, and it's probably away from what you value most. The wind's always blowing. The river's always running. If you're not in control, then something else is. I've met folks who drifted for 10, 20 years. Woke up one morning and realized the best of their life had been spent doing things they never cared about, for people who never truly knew them. They didn't make one big mistake, they just never steered. You want to take back your life? The first step is simple, but it's not easy. Stop drifting. That means today, not next week, not after things calm down. Today you decide, where are you going? What's worth fighting for? What are you willing to sweat for, even when it's uphill? And when you've got your answer, you take the reins. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for the wind to be at your back. A good rider knows how to work against the wind because the destination is worth it. The funny thing is, once you start steering, you'll wonder why you waited so long. The fear will shrink. The uncertainty will fade. And the pride, that quiet, deep pride of knowing you're living your life on purpose, will be worth every sore muscle and every rough mile. The river's moving, partner, the wind's blowing. The question is, are you just floating along, or are you steering toward the life you actually want? 2. Cut the dead weight. Every rider knows there's a limit to how much a horse can carry before it starts slowing him down. Doesn't matter how strong the animal is, load him too heavy, and pretty soon you're walking beside him instead of riding on top. Life works the same way. We all carry weight. Some of it's good responsibilities that matter, people who make us better, goals worth sweating for. But mixed in with the good, there's a lot of dead weight, and that, my friend, is what'll wear you out. Dead weight can take many shapes. Sometimes it's a person, someone who keeps you tied to the past, someone who drains your energy instead of feeding your soul. Sometimes it's a habit, the kind that eats away at your time, your health, or your confidence. Sometimes it's an old hurt, a grudge, a regret you keep dragging like a sack of rocks because you don't know how to set it down. At first, you think you can carry it all. It's just a little extra. You tell yourself, but mile after mile it adds up. It makes the hills harder, the days longer, and the joy less sweet. Before you know it, you're so used to the strain you don't even notice how tired you've become. Here's the hard truth. Not everything and everyone you start the journey with is meant to ride with you all the way to the end. Some folks are just there for a stretch of road. Some habits fit the old you, but don't serve the person you're trying to become. And some burdens were never yours to carry in the first place. You just picked them up out of guilt, fear, or habit. Cutting dead weight isn't about being cold or cruel. It's about being honest. If a saddlebag's full of spoiled food, you don't keep it there because you might need it later. You dump it because every extra pound slows you down. Same with your life. If it's not feeding you, it's just weighing you down. Now, here's where most folks get stuck. Letting go feels like loss. We tell ourselves, I can't just walk away from them, we've known each other for years. Or, I've been doing it this way forever, who will I be without it? But the truth is, you're not losing anything except the chains. What you gain is strength, freedom, and room for better things to come along. I've seen riders try to haul everything they've ever owned, every person they've ever met, every mistake they've ever made, all on one trip. They never get far. The horse goes lame, the rider breaks down, and the whole caravan grinds to a halt. But the riders who make it to the far horizon, they travel light. They know when it's time to keep something, and when it's time to let it go. You might be afraid to drop the dead weight because you've been leaning on it for balance. That's how it tricks you like a rotten crutch. It makes you think you need it just to keep moving. But the moment you set it down, you'll stand taller, you'll breathe deeper, you'll feel lighter in a way you forgot was possible. Cutting dead weight can be as simple as saying no where you used to say yes, or as hard as ending a relationship you've outgrown. It can mean breaking a habit that's been a comfort for years, or finally forgiving yourself for something you did long ago. Whatever form it takes, it's an act of courage. It says, I'm not dragging this through another mile of my life. And here's the reward. The lighter you travel, the more ground you can cover. You move quicker. You see more. You have the energy to face the uphill climbs and the strength to enjoy the view from the top. So take a good look at your load. Be honest about what's helping you and what's hurting you. Then, and this part's important, have the grit to set down what doesn't belong. Your horse will thank you. Your legs will thank you. And someday, looking back from a ridge you wouldn't have reached if you'd kept that old weight, you'll thank yourself. 3. Own your choices out here on the range. Every rider knows one thing for certain: where your horse ends up is a direct result of where you point him. You can blame the wind, you can blame the dust, you can even blame the stubborn mule in the next pasture, but in the end the reins are in your hands. Life's the same way. Every trail you take, every fork you choose, every shortcut you gamble on, those are your choices. And sooner or later, you've got to own them. Now, I've met folks who spend half their life looking for someone else to pin their troubles on. Their parents didn't raise them right. The boss didn't treat them fair. The weather turned bad at the worst time. And sure, sometimes those things are true. Life's not always a level playing field. But if you spend all your time counting the unfairness, you'll never have enough time left to make a better trail. The truth is, most of the time, we've got more control than we want to admit. Because the moment you admit control, you admit responsibility, and responsibility's a heavy saddle. It means that if you're not where you want to be, you've got work to do, and no one's coming to do it for you. Owning your choices isn't about beating yourself up for the bad ones. It's about being honest enough to say, yeah, I took that trail and here's where it led. Now I'm going to take a different one. You can't change the tracks behind you, but you sure as sunrise can choose the ones ahead. See, when you don't own your choices, you give away your power. You turn into a passenger on your own horse, letting the animal wander while you complain about where you're ending up. But when you own your choices, you take back the reins. You start riding with purpose. Let me tell you something. Owning your choices means owning all of them, the good, the bad, and the ones that seemed small at the time. A man doesn't just end up lost in the desert overnight. It's usually a dozen little turns that seemed harmless until he realized there's no water in sight. That's why you've got to be mindful every time you choose. The little things add up faster than you think. And when you make the wrong choice, and you will own that too, nothing earns more respect than a person who can look you in the eye and say, "I messed up. That one's on me." Folks like that are rare, and they're the ones worth riding with, because you know they won't throw you under the wagon when things get rough. Some people think owning your choices is just about big life decisions: where to live, who to marry, what work to do. But truth is, it's in the daily stuff: what you eat, how you treat people, whether you get up early or sleep till the sun's high, whether you save $1 or spend it on something you don't need. Those little daily choices shape the bigger picture more than you realize. There's freedom in ownership. Sounds strange, but it's true. When you stop blaming and start claiming, you find out just how much you can change. You stop waiting for someone else to fix things. You quit looking for a perfect wind and start learning how to ride through the storm. I once knew a man who lost nearly everything in a bad deal. Instead of pointing fingers, he said, "I shook the wrong hand. That's on me." Then he went back to work harder, smarter, more careful than before. Took him years, but he rebuilt everything he'd lost, and this time he built it better. Why? Because he knew the builder was him, and the blueprint was in his hands. So if you want to take back your life, start here. Look at where you are. Ask yourself if you chose this path, and if you didn't, ask how you ended up here anyway. Then make the next choice count. The saddle's yours, partner. The reins are yours. The trail you ride from here on out, that's on you. Own it every step of the way. For reclaim your time out here in the open country. There's one thing you can never get more of: daylight. When the sun drops behind the ridge, that's it. You can't bargain for more. You can't buy it back. And if you wasted it, well, that's on you. Life's the same way. Your time is the most valuable thing you've got, and it's running out every second, whether you use it or not. You can earn more money. You can find more cattle. You can buy another horse. But time, once it's gone for good. The trouble is, most folks spend their time like they've got an endless supply. They waste hours, sometimes days, on things that don't matter a lick to the kind of life they say they want. They sit around waiting for the right moment. Like time's some kind of generous neighbor who'll stop by and give them more. But time's no neighbor. It's more like a river, always moving, never waiting. If you're going to take back your life, you've got to take back your time first. That means looking hard at where it's going and deciding if that's where you want it to go. Ask yourself, how many hours do you give away every week to things that drain you? How many times do you say yes to someone else's plan when you know you should be working on your own? How many minutes get swallowed up by distractions, the kind you tell yourself are harmless until you add them all up? I've seen good men lose years because they kept putting off their own trail to ride along on someone else's. They meant well. They thought they were helping. But by the time they looked up, the horizon they were aiming for was gone, and the trail was cold. Reclaiming your time isn't about being selfish. It's about being a good steward of the one thing you can't replace. You can't live a life that matters if you give away all your hours to things that don't. Sometimes reclaiming your time means saying no to people you care about. Sometimes it means turning off the noise, stepping away from the crowd, and sitting in the quiet with your own thoughts. Sometimes it means waking up earlier, not because you have to, but because you want the extra daylight to work on what matters. And here's the thing, nobody's going to guard your time for you. The world will take every minute you give it, and it won't thank you for the gift. That's why you've got to be the one to draw the line. You've got to decide what's worth your daylight and what's not. A smart rancher doesn't let his cattle wander just anywhere. He fences off the pasture, keeps the herd where it belongs, and makes sure the grass they're eating is worth the work. You've got to fence off your time the same way. Keep it for the things that feed your spirit, your purpose, your future. Here's a truth that's hard to swallow. If you don't choose how to spend your time, someone else will choose for you. And they'll choose in a way that benefits them, not you. So every time you hand over your hours without thinking, you're letting someone else write your life story. When you start reclaiming your time, people will notice. Some will respect it. Others will get upset because your free hours made their lives easier. But you can't let that stop you. This is your daylight. We're talking about your one ride through this world. You're not here to live on someone else's clock. So take a look at your days. Be ruthless about cutting out the waste. Protect your hours like you'd protect a calf from a coyote, because once they're gone, they're not coming back. 5. Stand your ground out here on the prairie. There's one rule every hand learns quick. If you don't stand your ground, you're going to get pushed clear off it. The wind will try. The weather will try. And sometimes the people around you will try. Life's the same way. The minute you start living with purpose, the minute you decide where you're headed, there'll be something or someone trying to move you off your trail. And if you don't have the grit to plant your boots and hold your line, you'll be right back to drifting before you know it. Standing your ground doesn't mean being stubborn for the sake of it. It doesn't mean refusing to listen or learn. It means knowing what matters to you, your values, your goals, your vision, and refusing to let anyone talk you out of them just because it's inconvenient for them. See, when you start taking back your life, some folks won't like it. They might be people you care about, but here's the truth. If your change makes them angry, it's usually because your old ways were serving them more than they were serving you. You were easier to control when you didn't have boundaries. You were easier to keep in place when you didn't have a destination of your own. Now, standing your ground ain't always comfortable. It might mean having hard conversations. It might mean saying no when it would be easier to say yes. It might mean walking away from places and people you've known for years. But the alternative, that's living a life where you're constantly giving up your own peace to keep other people happy. And that's no way to ride. I've seen cowhands out on the trail who were steady as bedrock. You could push on him, test him, try to make him take a shortcut, and they wouldn't budge if they knew it was the wrong way. Not because they were mule-headed, but because they'd been down the wrong trail before and knew what it cost. They'd rather fight the headwind than be led into a canyon. And here's the thing about standing your ground the first time you do it. You'll feel shaky. Your voice might tremble. You'll question yourself. But every time you hold firm, you get stronger. You start trusting your own judgment more. You stop looking for permission to live the way you know you should. Some folks will try to make you feel guilty for not bending to their will. They'll call you selfish. They'll say you've changed. Well, of course you've changed. That was the whole point. You're not here to stay the same. You're here to grow, to live, to ride farther than you've ever ridden before. Standing your ground also means standing it against your own doubts. Some of the hardest battles you'll fight won't be with other people, they'll be in your own head. You'll wonder if you've got what it takes, if you're aiming too high, if you're making a mistake. But here's a little trail wisdom. The path worth riding is almost always the one with the strongest headwind. That's how you know it's leading somewhere worth going. You can't let every voice and every gust of wind change your direction. If you do, you'll spend your whole life zigzagging, never making it far enough to see the view from the top. When you stand your ground, you're telling the world and yourself, I'm worth protecting. My vision's worth defending. My future's worth fighting for. That's not pride talking. That's self-respect. And without that, you'll give away pieces of yourself until there's nothing left. So plant your boots deep. Keep your eyes on the horizon you've chosen. And when someone tries to pull you off course, you can tip your hat and say, I'll be seeing you, but I'm not going that way. The wind may howl, the storm may push, but a rider who knows where he's going and refuses to be moved. That's the kind of rider who makes it. 6. Ride with purpose. A rider without a destination is just wandering, no matter how fast his horse is. Out here in the wide country, you can spend all day in the saddle, cover miles of dirt and sage, and still end up right back where you started if you don't know where you're going. Life's no different. You can be busy from sunup to sundown, chasing one thing after another, and still not get anywhere that matters. The difference between a long, empty ride and a meaningful journey comes down to one thing: purpose. Purpose is your North Star. It's the reason you get up before dawn when the bed's warm. It's what keeps you riding into a headwind when quitting would be easier. It's the thing that makes the hard days worth it and the good days even sweeter. But here's the trouble: a lot of folks think purpose is something that just shows up one morning like a letter in the mail. Truth is, you've got to search for it, shape it, and sometimes even fight for it. And once you find it, you've got to protect it, because the world's full of things that'll try to distract you from it. Riding with purpose means knowing why you're on the trail in the first place. It means you're not just moving because everyone else is moving. You've got a reason, a destination, a vision that matters to you, and you measure your choices against that vision. I've seen riders get caught up in what I call busy dust, riding hard, working up a sweat, but going nowhere. They take every little side trail that shows up, saying, maybe this will get me somewhere. By the end of the day, all they've got is tired legs and no progress. Without purpose, every distraction looks like an opportunity, and every voice sounds like a direction. When you ride with purpose, you learn to say no to a lot of good things so you can say yes to the best things. You stop chasing every herd you see and focus on the one you've been trusted to tend. Purpose doesn't mean the trail will be smooth. In fact, it almost guarantees rough spots. But when you've got a reason, you don't mind the ruts so much. You know what they're leading to. That's what separates the rider who turns back at the first storm from the one who pushes through the one with a reason, keeps going. Sometimes your purpose will change. That's all right. You're not meant to have the same destination your whole life. What matters is that wherever you're heading there on purpose, not just drifting wherever the wind blows. And here's the beauty of it: riding with purpose gives you peace, even when the trail's uncertain. You might not know every turn ahead, but you know you're riding in the right direction. That alone will keep you steady when others are panicking. Purpose will also keep you honest with yourself. When you know where you're going, you can't lie to yourself about wasting time or taking shortcuts. Either you're on the trail or you're not. And if you're not, you can adjust and get back on it before too much daylight's gone. I once knew a hand who'd ride out every morning with a clear goal. Didn't matter if it was branding calves, fixing fence, or moving cattle to new pasture, he always knew what he was riding for that day. He wasn't the fastest or the flashiest, but at the end of the season, his work was solid and his progress sure. Why? Because every mile he rode had a reason behind it. If you want to take back your life, stop riding just to ride. Stop chasing other folks' trails. Figure out what matters to you and then ride for it like your life depends on it. Because here's the truth, partner, it does. Take back your life, so here we are, partner. 6 trails we've ridden together. 6 truths you can stake your life on. We've talked about stopping the drift because you ain't a tumbleweed, you're a rider, and it's time you started steering. We've talked about cutting the dead weight because you can't ride far if you're hauling things that don't belong in your saddle. We've talked about owning your choices because the reins are in your hands and where you end up is on you. We've talked about reclaiming your time because daylight's precious and you can't get back what you waste. We've talked about standing your ground because the world will try to shove you off your path the minute you step onto it. And we've talked about riding with purpose because miles without meaning are just circles in the dust. Put all that together, and here's the truth: taking back your life isn't a someday thing. It's a today thing. Right now, before the sun drops behind the ridge, you can't wait for perfect weather. You can't wait for everyone to approve. You can't wait for the trail to be smooth. You've got to saddle up now with what you've got, where you are, and start moving toward the life you were meant to live. Because no one's coming to hand you your life on a silver platter. If you want it, you've got to take it back. You've got to fight for it. You've got to defend it. And you've got to ride it like it's the only one you've got, because it is. So tighten your cinch, adjust your hat, look that horizon dead in the eye and say, "That's where I'm headed." Then ride, because your life is too important to drift through, too short to waste, and too sacred to live by someone else's map. Take it back, and don't you dare give it away again.